Hey there, good afternoon. Just want to make sure you're in the right place. You're here for Goalbook's training. Hey folks, welcome. Just want to make sure you're in the right place. We're here for Goalbook Toolkit, designing instruction with Goalbook Toolkit. Welcome. We'll get started in just a few moments. Thanks so much for being here. Hey folks, just making sure you're in the right place. This is Goalbook Toolkit, designing instruction. We'll get started shortly. Hey Dave, it's great to see you.
Hi, glad to be here. I'm going to do my best to help out.
Awesome. Dave, I got a note if I should be like live streaming this to the lobby. I said no. Is that appropriate?
Yeah, that's correct. Yep.
Okay, awesome.
This is just for this session.
Perfect. So we'll give it a few minutes and then go ahead and get started. I'm going to put up a sign-in sheet for you all just so you can get credit for attending. Give me a moment to share my screen. Dave, I'm not sure if anyone from your tech team or if anyone else from your tech team will join, but I just want to say that the setup for this and kind of the communication from my end has been spectacular. So just kudos to everyone putting in efforts on the back end.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Hey folks, glad to have you. If you just joined, we're here for Goalbook Toolkit, designing instruction. We'll be here for about an hour and a half, kicking off in a few minutes. You should be able to see my screen, which has information about how to sign in. And just hang tight, we'll get started shortly. Thanks for being here. To folks that that are looking at the chat, I got a question about signing in for this session. My understanding is that you only sign in once today, and so if you signed in already, then you should be good to go. That's my understanding. If you've already signed, oh, there we go. Thanks for letting me know that my mic was off. Can everyone hear me now? Perfect. That should be a little bit better. Alrighty, well, we'll go ahead and kick off this session. We are a minute past 1:15, and so want to be mindful of your time. Welcome, Jenny. I just saw that you were able to get in, and we are just getting started. I have the sign-in sheet up, and Jenny, maybe I'll call you in if there's anything you want to say about Goalbook or anything you want to say to folks here before we dive into our session.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And thank you, Soham, for making yourself available today. So Goalbook, I think this is like our 9th year using Goalbook, or we've had Goalbook in the past, and we have increased our licenses in the past few years, so that to make sure that our schools, our teachers have access to Goalbook. So, and I want you guys to know that there are more features of Goalbook, and not just goal making in IEPs. There's the data tracking, and there's the lessons even that you can use to make sure that those goals are being hit, right? That the students are meeting them. So that's why I always want to encourage you to like attend these PDs, so that you know what features Goalbook is offering. So that's it for me. And I'll also see you guys on the 14th, August 14th at Lowell High School. Soham will be also there. He will be offering 2 sessions.
Thanks so much, Jenny. And for those of you that just joined, welcome. You're here for Goalbook Toolkit Designing Instruction. I'm going to go ahead and move us along. There's a bit about how you can get paid for teachers, paras, and subs. I'm sure you may have access to this information, but I'll just leave it up here for a quick second in case those of you that are seeing it for the first time. It looks like there's a sign-in sheet, and you submit your total hours on your personal PD template. For today, all of our materials are available electronically, and in our chat, I'm going to go ahead and place the link where you can access all of those. So keep an eye on our Zoom chat for any links that may be coming your way. You'll also need access to Goalbook Toolkit homepage, not right now, but at some point we will be jumping into our platform so that we can explore and learn the different features that are available. Also, I'm definitely someone who's a little bit old school and prefer to take notes on paper and pencil. And if that's you as well, make sure you have those handy and you can jot down notes as appropriate. Alrighty, well, we are here to learn how to design instruction with Goalbook Toolkit. This can be thought of as an overview of all of the features that are in Goalbook Toolkit. Remember, Jenny just said it's not just goals. We assist with present levels. We assist with looking up UDL strategies. We have progress monitoring assessments, data tracking sheets, and all of that is embedded with Goalbook Toolkit. In order to kick us off, I do want to mention that we have enabled closed captioning, and to enable that feature on your end, you can go to the CC Show Captions button on the bottom of the Zoom screen, and that will allow you to see a transcript of what is being said. For those of you that may be new to Goalbook, Goalbook is a company that was created by and for teachers. All the content, the tips, the resources that you'll find on our platform are made by our content team that has classroom experience. Everyone in my role or my team also has had classroom experience before jumping into our position. We partner with research-based organizations across the country to make sure that whatever we put on our platform is of quality and vetted. The most interesting part of our work, and the part that brings me the most joy, is the thought partnerships that we have with over 800 districts in 46 states. This allows us to collaborate with you all as educators, learn from you all, and more importantly, figure out how we can make our tool more tailored to your needs. With that being said, I'd love to share a little bit more about myself. My name is Soham Bhatt, and actually before joining Goalbook, I was an educator in San Francisco Public Schools. I taught at Wallenberg. I see one of my colleagues is on our training today. It really is nice to be back and sharing Goalbook Toolkit with all of you. I stay in San Francisco. I live in Visitation Valley with my wife and 2.5-year-old son, and we have a great time exploring our neighborhood. And broadly, just enjoying the beautiful weather in San Francisco this week. Really, it is nice to be back and speaking to some familiar faces and folks that I used to call colleagues. I'd love to get a sense of who we have in the room. And so if you could type in your name, your grade level, and your role, that would be fantastic. There's a prompt on the screen. And so just to that, add your name and your grade level. And then go ahead and type in a number in the chat. What do you think is the biggest challenge for you personally when it comes to the IEP writing process? Is it 1, baseline assessments, 2, data-driven present levels, 3, standards-based goals, 4, progress monitoring, or 5, ready-to-use research-based strategies? Joseph, thanks for kicking us off. Much appreciated. Miss Abrons, I definitely see you. Thanks, folks. It's nice to see the wide range of expertise that we have here today. I'm seeing a lot of folks type in number 4 when it comes to progress monitoring. I'm seeing a little bit of 3s as well when it comes to standards-based goals. And I hear it. Progress monitoring is challenging, and there's a lot of complexity around how to do that effectively. And so I just want to name that up front. Thank you so much for your intros. If there's anything in the tool that you want to see or explore a little bit more, please feel free to chat it over to me, and I'll do my best to cater it to you and show you what you can explore with respect to your area of expertise. Today, we're primarily going over 3 outcomes that encompass those 5 challenges I showed on the screen prior. Number 1, we want to show you how Goalbook Toolkit can help you design meaningful present level statements using student data. We want to show you how Goalbook Toolkit can support you in developing instructional content in Goalbook Toolkit that addresses learner variability, right? Being able to scaffold and adjust instruction to meet the needs of our students is critical and very challenging. And number 3, we want to create conditions for transformative learning through intentional IEP design. What we mean by that is, how do you take the IEP from paper into the classroom, right? There's a bridge there, and we hope Goalbook Toolkit can support you in that. Based off of what you see here, which objective do you think speaks to you most closely? Is it designing present levels? Is it instructional content, whether that is goals or progress monitoring? Or 3, creating conditions for that learning to happen in the classroom, maybe around strategies or supports or systems that you could implement to really make sure that that IEP is translating from paper to classroom. I'm getting a lot of 2s and 3s. Awesome. All righty. And so with that being said, when it comes to thinking about goals and progress monitoring, we want to make sure that we pay extra attention to that, because that seems to be, by popular demand, the area that we want to focus on the most here. Okay, before we dive into Goalbook Toolkit, I want to take us on a little journey. I'm not sure if you had the chance this summer to take the short drive up to Yosemite National Park, but for anyone who did, I'd ask you to reflect on that experience on your own. For those of us that didn't, we're going to get a chance to virtually go there right now. When I go to Yosemite and I pull in, the first question I ask is, which one of these mountains do I want to climb? I have a whole host of options, a whole host of ranges that I can ascend. And the question that I want to ask is, which one am I most fit for doing today? In order to do that, I need to assess the lay of the land. I need to figure out if I have the right gear, if I have enough food, water, if I have the right equipment, in order to make sure that I'm setting myself up for success. When we think about this in the context of our students, we think about that as baseline data, right? How are we gathering baseline data for our students that allow us to set them up for success? And so, what are their strengths and needs? What are their skills? What strategies and supports are helpful for them in the classroom? All of this is critical in helping us set them up for success. The second question I ask when I go hiking in Yosemite is, okay, once I've taken the lay of the land, once I've assessed my gear and my situation, what does the summit look like? What does the peak of that mountain look like? And for our students, that peak or that summit is analogous to a clear instructional objective, right? What are our students going to learn by the end of the year? And how can I become definitively sure about what that looks like so I can plan instruction? And then lastly, once we have our baseline data, or once we have our lay of the land, and once we know what our peak looks like, the third question is, well, how do we get there? Do we ascend straight to the top? Do we take a more circuitous route? Do we use climbing equipment such as an all-terrain wheelchair? Right? What scaffold and supports am I going to implement to make my hike? For our students, this is a similar question. We have their present levels, we have their goals. How do we get them from present levels to goals by the end of the year, right? You'll hear me come back to this analogy frequently as we think about how Goalbook Toolkit can support your practice. I want to start off with a student example, though. I know we have a wide range of educators here from all grade levels, and that's fantastic. Goalbook Toolkit can really be adapted to serve the needs of students from pre-K through transition. What I want to do is start with a profile and a story of Madison. We know a little bit about Madison. We know that Madison wants to be a doctor when she's older. Currently, she's in the 4th grade. And I'm going to have you read a story about Madison specifically with these guiding questions in mind. As you read, if you need to jot down notes on a sheet of paper next to you, feel free to do that. And we're going to come back with a quick discussion through the chat about what we learned regarding Madison's experience in the classroom. Okay? Just so I know that you are comfortable with the next 5 minutes of work, can I get a thumbs up through Zoom indicating that you're understanding what the task is for the next 5 minutes? You can also respond in the chat with a yes or I got you. Alrighty. And so shortly in the chat, you should see a link. That link, when you open it up, will look like this. And this is a story for our student. At the end, there are some questions, and be prepared to discuss this through the chat when we come back in about 5 minutes. All right, I'll set my timer. Just about 90 seconds left. Again, as you read our student's story, think about her experience in math and English class, maybe some connections you're making to yourself, and some of your key takeaways. Alrighty. I'll just acknowledge there's a question in the chat about who is Madison. There's actually a typo in the story. The name should be Madison instead of Rachel, but it's the same student. So sorry for that confusion. Thanks for calling that out, Nicholas. I appreciate that. I should have named it in the beginning. But the story is the same. It should be Madison instead of Rachel. I will go ahead and send the link to the story. Oh, yep, I put it in the chat, but I'll go ahead and put it in the chat again. And again, I'll just go ahead and acknowledge that there's a small typo. The story should be about Madison, but in the story it actually says Rachel, but same experience. Okay, and so for those of you that had some time to read it, you learned a little bit about our students' experience in the classroom, in particular, two of her classroom subjects. If I asked you to name the question, or if I asked you, what are your key takeaways from our students' experience, what would you say? And so I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to just craft a response in the chat. Don't hit enter yet, but you're just answering the question, what are your key takeaways about our student? Rachel or Madison? I know there's a small typo. What did you learn? What did you learn about our student? And what feels important to you, right? So take about another 30 seconds to craft out your response in the chat. No need to hit enter right now. Just get that question, just get that answer in draft form. But what are your takeaways about our student? And in about 10 seconds, I'll have you hit enter and we can read some of the responses that we have. All right. Take about another 5. Again, what are your key takeaways from our story? And if you're ready, go ahead and hit enter. And let's see if we can build some themes here. I'm going to take a moment to scroll up and down, saying she needs more support in math class. There's some bit about relationships and feeling connected to the teacher, where there's a positive and encouraging teacher who is engaging can scaffold instruction for our student. And when doing so, our student is willing to accept that challenge, right? Our student seems motivated and willing to work on difficult tasks, but needs a little bit of encouragement. So on and so forth. Let's see. Madison does well when she feels connected with the teacher, right? And so there's a component here in which the relationship with the teacher really goes a long way for our student. There may be portions of Madison's profile that remind you of students that you support, right? And there may be portions of Madison's profile, which in my case actually remind me of myself as a student. And I think that's critical. I really leaned on teachers that were able to build that relationship with me in order for me to feel safe and comfortable in their classroom. And so as we go through our time today, think about your version of Madison. Who is that for you? I know for me, there are a couple students that always pop into my head with, if someone asks me the question, who's one student that you could have done a little bit more for? Who's a student that you think you could have better supported? There's a few names that always pop into my head. And so for now, I want to encourage you to think about that one student, right? Let's talk a little bit more about context here. Unfortunately, what our student experienced in math class, whether you call her Madison or Rachel, is not uncommon. There was a study done in 2018 that surveyed classroom observations, lesson plans, work samples, surveys, and what they found is out of 180 classroom hours in each core subject, 133 of those hours were spent on assignments that were not grade appropriate, which leaves only 47 hours to be spent on assignments that are grade appropriate. If I do the quick mental math, 75% of time is spent on assignments that were not grade appropriate. Now, if we extend that study just a tad further, what was encouraging is that success and achievement on grade level work were similar across students of color and classrooms with mostly white students. But 4 out of 10 classrooms with the majority of students of color never received a single grade level assignment. What this speaks to me is the question about access. At the end of the day, students of color, those from low-income families, English language learners, and students with mild to moderate disabilities have even less access to these resources for grade level instruction compared to their peers. When I think about this, I reflect on my time in the classroom, and I certainly see how at times I could fall into these numbers. I think there were times where I gave my students access to content that was below grade level. And at the time it felt justified. Maybe I was building a skill. But I wonder now if I was actually setting my students up for success in the long run. I say that because results on nationwide test scores, particularly with respect to reading, are reflected here. We see that students with specific learning disabilities have average to above average intelligence compared to their peers, but in this case have significantly lower proficiency levels when it comes to reading in 4th grade and 8th grade. When I put these two narratives together, I think about the idea of access. What would these numbers look like if 74% of the time students were not working on content that was below grade level, right? It leaves me with a big question. And to that end, I find this quote extremely inspiring. It turns out that kids can do pretty much anything you ask them to do with the right kind of instructional practice. It's downright scary. I think this quote lights a fire in me right now, and I hope it serves as a guide as we move forward to think about how we can support our students and again, provide them with that grade level access, or in the case of our analogy, that peak, so that they can go from their present levels or baselines to that peak by the end of the year. Let's go ahead and dig in. For us, that starts with a strong present levels statement. And Goalbook can help you craft a data-driven present level statement that then allows you to look for an informed goal. Goalbook, in collaboration with research partners, have come up with a checklist of what is best practice in a present levels statement. In the course materials link, you should see a document titled DSO Checklist. I will also place a link in our chat. Give me 1 second to do that. This checklist is available to you and highlights that a rigorous, thorough present level statement contains data, story, and objective statements. And we're going to walk through each portion of that right now. So first and foremost, when I think about data, I think about assessment data. And is it linked to the student's performance? Is there an explanation for each score or data set? And does the narrative support the data? All these questions are valid when considering data. What I want you to do is to think about what data sources you have access to in terms of writing a present level statement. Take about 10 seconds to reflect. And when you're ready, in the chat, go ahead and type in a couple data sources that you commonly use when it comes to present levels writing. I'll go ahead and type that question in the chat. I'm saying reading assessments. Thanks, Maria, for kicking us off. There's a running record, curriculum-based assessments, work samples, teacher input, student work samples, F&P scores, exactly. There's a whole host of data samples or data sources that we can use, right? And it's important to name them just so we're familiar with what to include in our present level statements. With respect to my student, Madison, we have a couple data sources that I'm going to show you momentarily. There is a valid question of what happens if you don't have access to data points. A student is new to your caseload, maybe they've transferred in mid-year, maybe they've transferred in from out of state. Goalbook provides you with baseline assessments that you can use to verify baseline data. Here, we have a present levels wizard. When you click on that, for every skill that you want to report a present levels on, you have access to a downloadable assessment that you can use to verify baseline data. Right? Nothing in Goalbook is prescriptive. However, it is optional and additional in case you need it. And I'll walk through what that looks like momentarily. For Madison, we have these data points. I'm going to give you a moment to look at her profile. And in about a minute, we'll come back and evaluate strengths that you see and needs that you see. We kind of liken this to that first question about going on a hike. What mountain are we climbing? What's the lay of the land, right? What are our strengths and needs? So in about 30 seconds, we'll come back and have a conversation around Madison's strengths. Just take a look at the profile in the meantime. Alrighty, and in the chat, I've typed in a question. What are some of Madison's strengths? And based on the profile, go ahead and type in a few that come to mind from what you're seeing. I'll certainly go ahead and start by saying, as I review Madison's profile, the very first thing that I see is her fluency. Her oral reading fluency is within the proficiency range for the 4th grade. As I continue looking, I see that she's very strong, she's very social and has strong friendships. And the last bullet point on the right also tells me that she can advocate, and there's a PBIS structure that works for her in the classroom. She has positive behavior reinforcements that work for her and help her stay on task. Right. Thanks, Tiffany, for kicking that question off. Social connections, response to reinforcements, and her fluency is proficient. Exactly. If I were to flip the question and talk about needs, I see that she's comprehending text at a 2nd grade level. She reports that long texts feel overwhelming, and so I may want to think about chunking. And I see that she reports she has a preference for working with a teacher or a peer, so perhaps independent work or working independently becomes something that I incorporate into her IEP plan. I know that Madison qualifies for services because of a specific learning disability. Primary area of impact is with cognitive conceptualization. Keeping all this in mind, we want to show you how we may incorporate some of this data into Madison's present level statement. And so The second portion of our checklist is the story component, right? We just looked at Madison's data, and we'll incorporate that in our present level statement in Goalbook Toolkit. Here, when we think about story, we think about the strengths, the strategies, the structures in the classroom that really support our student in being successful. For Madison, maybe those are things like a read aloud, or maybe those are things like working with a peer or the teacher, right? But for other students, maybe it's the other strategies and accommodations that you incorporate into your classroom to make them successful. When it comes to what that looks like in a present level statement, though, it can become a little bit tricky. And so here we've provided you with an example with respect to Madison. And specifically, I've highlighted the portions here that correspond with her profile and would align with the story component on the checklist. You see what I've highlighted here is strategies, skills, maybe some observations that I've made in the classroom about Madison as a student. But all of those build the context and build the narrative beyond the quantitative data that I mentioned before. The last piece of our checklist is objective statements. When we think about a present level statement, we want it to be written in an objective way. And this is also challenging. At Goalbook, we think about objective statements in two ways. We think about it as the overall tone and the word choice that we use to write our statement, but we also think about it as the impact of disability statement, which is critical in helping us understand Madison's disability and how it impacts her. I'm looking at the same statement that I showed you on the slide before, and I'm going to highlight phrases that help me write these statements in an objective way. Things like Madison reports that, or she frequently requests, or an observation such as Madison finishes at least one independent reading book a week really go a long way in helping me write these statements from an objective tone. I mentioned the impact of disability statement as well. And the statement is critical because it tells us what Madison's disability is, but also how it impacts her access and progress in the general education curriculum. To this end, Goalbook can support the development of these statements in the present levels wizard, which I'm going to show you soon. And so let's go ahead and jump in. I'm going to demo Goalbook in the present levels wizard for about the next 10 minutes. After that's done, you're going to get some work time to jump in and start exploring on your own. If you don't have a login or access to the tool right now, we'll show you how to get in after my demo. And we'll make sure that you're able to get in at least by the end of the session today. All right. For those of you that work best by clicking along with me, if you know your login, feel free to jump in. If you work best by observing, you can simply just watch and then enjoy playing around during your work time. The first thing I'm going to do is go to goalbookapp.com, type that in my browser, and hit the orange sign in button on the right. I'll enter in my username and password, and I am brought to our Goalbook Toolkit homepage. Our homepage is laid out in a pretty structured way, but I want to go over some sections so we all know what we're looking at. At the top, there's a Learn About Toolkit section. Here I have my most recent updates and any changes we've made to the platform. This link right here is a link to upcoming webinars. These are included with your licenses and are available to you, especially throughout the year. If you find one that feels appealing to you, your role, your area of expertise, feel free to sign up for it. And as long as you register, you'll get a recording in your email as soon as it is done. Here's our Explore Instructional Resources section, which is where we'll be spending most of our time. This present levels wizard has downloadable assessments for me to use and draft a data-driven present level statement. There are 3 ways to look for standard aligned learning goals. All take you to the same place, and 2 different ways to look for UDL aligned strategies. As I scroll down, I have my library, my favorites, and then a quick way to search for content by our different subject areas. I'm going to scroll up to the top and click in the present levels wizard. When I do that, I'm prompted for some student information. I'm going to type in my student's name for Madison and select the grade level that she's enrolled in. Madison's enrolled in the 5th grade, but do keep in mind you can use Goalbook Toolkit for students from pre-K all the way through transition. Now I get to indicate the area of strength or need. I'm not indicating whether this subject is a strength or a need at this point, just that I have data on it and I want to report on it. So for Madison, we can select reading. If I wanted to, I could also select social and emotional learning, maybe behavior, if that was relevant and I had data on it. But for the purposes of our time, we're just going to stick to reading for Madison. The alt academic sections right here are relevant for any students who are taking the alternate state assessments. Success skills usually focuses on resources around executive functioning. Behavior leads you to an ABC chart that you can fill out for any behavior that you want to report, so on and so forth. Once I select reading, I'll hit develop present levels. And now the wizard says, fantastic, you want to talk to me about Madison's progress in reading? That's great, but reading as a subject area is way too broad. Define the foundational skills for me and report on those. I have all my foundational skills in reading. And for Madison, we can report on fluency and comprehension because that's where we have data. I'm going to click add, and right away you have a draft present level statement for you. It defaults to the 4th grade. Highlighted in purple is a downloadable assessment that you can use to verify baseline data. If you have other assessment options, that's perfect. Continue using those. This is here as an option. Once I decide I want to edit, I can click into the box, and anything that's in parentheses, I want to individualize for my student. You'll see some questions down here that you can answer that help build out that story component of our checklist. If you don't answer them, just be sure that you highlight them and delete it so it doesn't pull over into your final IEP document. Once you're done, you can hit copy and paste this into your IEP program. As you scroll down, you have the standards for that assessment, as well as additional assessment resources that you can download to your computer or open and save with Google Drive. I'm also going to report on comprehension. And so I'll hit add. You'll see once again, it defaults to a 4th grade level. And my data suggests that Madison is a couple grade levels behind. What I can do then is toggle back using these radio buttons to find a grade level aligned assessment that Madison is performing proficiently on. I can download this to my computer or open it with Google and use it to verify baseline levels. And if Madison is indeed performing at a 2nd grade level, I'm going to go in and start editing. Once again, anything in parentheses is a nod for you to individualize it for your student. And so I'm going to start deleting data sources that I don't collect. I'm going to start editing percentage accuracies based on what is actually happening in the classroom. And maybe I write here that Madison prefers to engage in a read aloud before independent reading time. I'm going to delete these questions that I don't answer and hit done. I can copy this statement into my IEP program. The standards that that highlighted assessment aligns to are noted right down here, as well as additional assessment resources. The last step in my present levels component is the disability statement. Here, I can select the area of qualification. For Madison, it's a specific learning disability. I'm going to hit add. I can select the area of impact if I know it, and if I don't, I can select other. For Madison, area of impact is cognitive conceptualization. And once again, I have a draft statement here that I can individualize. I see parentheses down over here, so I'm going to say that Madison struggles with determining the main idea. I'll hit done. I can copy this statement and paste it into my IEP program and continue editing from there. I'm going to hit generate draft present levels. And now everything that I've entered is neatly compiled. I have some student information at the top. I have an area of strength in fluency because we indicated that Madison was at grade level. An area of need and comprehension because we indicated that Madison was a couple grade levels behind. And then lastly, my impact to disability statement. At the top, I can copy this entire statement into my program and continue editing. I'm going to save it to my library. I remember telling my students, and also when I was a student being told, make sure you save your work frequently, otherwise it'll go away. This green button is a nod to that. Anytime you see a green button, feel free to save your work. I'm going to save to another folder. I'm going to create a new folder and name it Madison. And now this present level statement is saved. In addition to the statement, you also save all your embedded assessments that you encountered, and we recommend aligned goals and strategies in the areas of strength or need to make sure we continue that through line between present levels and goals. All you have to do is click on this hyperlink, and now you're looking at instructional content that is filtered down for Madison in the area of reading, aligned to 4th grade for comprehension. I'm going to go back to our homepage, and all we've done so far is look at the present levels wizard, download a couple assessments, and build a present level statement. I'm going to turn it over to you for some work time for about 10 minutes. In those 10 minutes, feel free to log into Goalbook Toolkit at goalbookapp.com. Everyone's district email should get them in. Your password is a capital SFU123. And if you have any trouble logging in, we have some accounts here at this URL. I'm going to set my timer for 10 minutes. Again, for these 10 minutes, we're just sticking to the present levels wizard. We'll come back and move on to goals and strategies. Just to make sure that I've been clear with my instructions and that there are no questions, can I get a thumbs up if you understand what the task is for the next 10 minutes? Awesome. I'm seeing a couple thumbs up. Feel free to affirm in the chat as well if that's easier. Okay. If you have trouble logging in, let me know. I'd be happy to help troubleshoot on the back end. But like I said, 10 minutes, and then we'll come back and move on to goals. I'm getting some questions in the chat about the password. The password for everyone should be a capital SFU123. All those letters are capital. If you're having trouble logging in, try going to the website that's listed under login difficulty, and that'll be a way that you can play around with the tool for now. And I'll put that link in the chat as well. All right, I'm getting some positive feedback about folks being able to log in. That's wonderful. We'll come back in about, let's say, 8 minutes or so. Just as a reminder, once you log in, feel free to explore the present levels wizard. Maybe you're checking out a different domain. Maybe you're actually starting to build a present level statement for one of your students on your caseload. Whatever feels useful for your time right now, but we're sticking to that present levels component. All right. Maybe you're downloading a couple assessments that come with skills that you want to report on. Lots of options there. And of course, if you have a question about anything, you want me to go over something one more time, just go ahead and ping me. I'd be happy to do that for you. All right, I'm going to be in the background for about 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and continue moving on. But don't be shy. If you've got a question, feel free to ping me in the chat. I'm keeping an eye on it. There's a couple questions in the chat that I just want to address to the whole group because I think it'll be helpful. I got a question about how to edit the impact of disability statement in communication. Really great question. When you go to your present levels, I'll just use my name and say 8th grade. If I go to communication, You'll have the ability to report on areas of strength or need. I'm just going to pick articulation. We'll say that I'm at minimal assistance. And as I go through the tool, I'll generate draft present levels. What you'll find is there's a default impact and disability statement that comes right down here. The way that you can edit this is to copy this statement, input it into SACE, and then edit in SACE. There's no way to edit this specific impact or disability statement in communication within Goalbook. All right. So hopefully that's helpful. We'll come back in just about 90 seconds and push on with looking at the other components that Goalbook Toolkit can help support with. Again, if you've got a question, feel free to chat it over and I'll do my best to answer. Alrighty, I'm going to bring us back just a tad early to keep this moving. There's a question in the chat, a really good one. I think it's coming from Elise. I hope I pronounced that correctly. The question is, does Goalbook connect to SACE? The answer is yes, but not directly. The way to do it is if you are filling anything that you can edit within Goalbook. Let me just select this really quickly as an example. Anything that you can edit in Goalbook will always have this copy button. When you copy it, you can then paste it into SACE and then continue editing from there. All right, so that's how these two talk to each other. You'll have Goalbook open in one tab, SACE open in another. Fantastic question. Thanks for asking. Alrighty, and so I'll bring your attention back to our Zoom screen. Hopefully you had a chance to explore some new tools within the Present Levels wizard, play around with some functionality that you may not have used in the past. Again, we hope that it is helpful. The next part of our training today is to focus specifically on goals. Now, goals is the portion that a lot of you responded to saying that's critical for you and your learning. It's also the portion with progress monitoring that a lot of you said was the most challenging. And so I want to dive back into the tool, but also provide you with a little bit of context as to how Goalbook thinks about our goals. Number one, all the goals in Goalbook are standard aligned, but standards are oftentimes confusing or maybe a little verbose, and they don't necessarily tell us how to measure student understanding. To that end, what we provide is something called a core purpose. The core purpose is that main learning component of a standard boiled down to about 10 to 15 words. We don't water down the standard, but we try to take the main learning component and provide it to you so it's clear what that instructional peak is, right? Going back to our hiking analogy. As an example, this is a 4th grade reading standard. It has a student refer to details and examples in a text when explaining what the text says explicitly and when drawing inferences from the text. While this may be clear to some of us, I know for me personally, there are a few words in here that trip me up. And so to that end, the core purpose is refer to details and examples in the text to support claims. As an educator, I'm much more clear on this core purpose compared to the standard. The core purpose is provided for every goal, and we encourage you to read it as you look to develop your goals. On our goal page, you'll see right over here on the right side, you see the key standard. Above that key standard is the core purpose right over here. Now, as another example, this is a 3rd grade math example. As soon as I begin to read this, I get a little confused. I see fractions, I see 1 over b, a over b, and you can probably understand that if you were to read this standard, it becomes a little tricky to know exactly what the 3rd grader is supposed to be accomplishing. If I click here, the core purpose is know the parts that make up a fraction. Once again, the core purpose identifies the learning objective and makes it very clear for me as to what a student is supposed to be able to do. That core purpose becomes our peak, right? Remember we talked about our mountain climbing analogy. We have our baselines, now we want our peak. So that core purpose becomes our instructional objective. And once we're clear on that summit, all of the paths to access become very, very clear, right? Again, students may ascend right to the top, they may take a more circuitous route, but as long as we are clear on that core purpose, we know exactly how to plan instruction. To that end, I want to go back into Goalbook Toolkit and show you where you can find goals and adapt them for your students. This is the standard that we want Madison to be working towards. It's that 4th grade reading standard. Specifically, that core purpose is about referring to details and examples in the text to support claims. On our homepage, there's 3 different ways to look for goals. If you're coming into Goalbook for the first time, I want you to click on the Learning Goal Index. Here, you'll see all of our content at once and be able to look through and scroll all the subcategories that we offer goals in. This is extremely helpful so you can pinpoint exactly where you want to go and then find relevant goals that are curated for you already. Another way to look for goals is the Personalized Learning Goal Index, Personalized Learning Goal Wizard. When I click in here, I'm prompted for some information. I'm going to select a goal for reading for Madison, but you can select math, behavior, SEL, transition, speech and language. All academic and life skills focuses on our students that are taking alternate assessments. I'm going to select reading. Specifically, I'm going to look for comprehension of informational text for a student in grade 4. This last prompt has me indicate the level of individualized support the student needs in order to access grade level content. I'm going to select some. And when I do that, I hit Get Resources for this student. Right now, I'm looking at 20 goals curated for Madison, filtered based on what I just selected on the screen prior. There's a couple things I want to highlight. You see some blue tiled pages here and some white tiled pages. I'm going to focus on our blue tiled pages right now, but both types of pages offer an annual target and multiple paths of access. Our blue tiled pages are called our anchor pages, and they align to the most foundational standards within a subject area. Our blue tiled pages also come with progress monitoring assessments and data tracking sheets. Several of you mentioned that that was the biggest challenge, and so I want to highlight that today. Additionally, what you'll notice is some of our goals have progress monitoring assessments in Spanish. And so if you are at a school and certainly in SFUSD, where your student would benefit from taking an assessment in Spanish, we are starting to provide more and more of that for you. For Madison, I'm going to click on this blue tiled page again with a progress monitoring assessment and see what comes up. I have my goal title, the key standard that this goal aligns to, along with the core purpose. And from this core purpose, I get an annual target. I can scaffold that annual target appropriately by clicking on these different access points. You'll notice that in each case, we change how the information is presented to the student or how the student is expressing their understanding, but we don't sacrifice that grade level alignment. So right over here, I click on approaching. I can begin to edit by a certain date, say June 5th, 2024. After reading an illustrated instructional level informational text, we'll add Madison's name, and I can continue editing. I'm going to hit done. I'm going to copy this statement and paste it into SACE. I can continue editing from SACE if I need to. Everything that's highlighted in yellow is a UDL aligned strategy that I can learn more about by simply clicking on the hyperlink. This strategy page is something that I'll go into more a little bit later. I'm also going to save this goal to Madison's profile. Remember that green button is becoming our best friend. And so I'll save it, and now I can easily return to this when I log back in. Underneath the annual target, we have quarterly objectives that are meant to support your understanding of the content as it unfolds over the arc of the year. And you can also edit these and adapt them in a way that you feel is best. Underneath the objectives is where we have our progress monitoring assessments. These are becoming increasingly popular, and I just want to open them up and show you what they look like. Here you have 4 passages meant to support progress monitoring. I have a passage. After that, I have my assessment, which is aligned to the goal, and then a rubric, so I can easily score. These assessments are for you. Again, nothing is prescriptive. You can file, make a copy, and now this version becomes yours, and you can run with it in whatever way makes the most sense. We also provide a data tracking sheet because not only is it important to have assessments, but it's important to keep track of our progress. Our goal comes embedded within the data tracking sheet, and you can keep this document electronically or print it out so you have your data tracking sheet ready to go. All of these resources for progress monitoring are available on our anchor pages, again, which are the blue tiled pages I showed you before. I'm going to go back to the home page and browse learning goals, and let's take a look at some other subject areas. Let's look at behavior and SEL. I'll just do a quick scroll so you can see the content that is here. I'll also go to transition in case we have some folks that are supporting transition. Again, the blue tiled pages with the progress monitoring symbol on the right are indicative of the ones that have progress monitoring assessments. And let's do success skills. These are more around executive functioning. All right. The last piece that Goalbook Toolkit can support with is strategies, right? We've identified baselines. We know what our peak looks like. The question is, how do we get kids to get there? I'm going to click on Browse Strategies. And when I do that, I have 394 strategies that pop up. This can be overwhelming. It's certainly a lot and a lot to filter through. The expectation isn't that you necessarily use all these strategies, but that you're able to filter them in a way that feels meaningful for you. The first way that I can do it is to filter by subject. So I can filter by reading. For Madison, maybe I'm looking for comprehension strategies for grades 3 through 5. And now I'm looking at 93 results. As I scroll, You'll see that I see exit tickets, give one, get one. Those were popular in my classroom. I'll continue scrolling. And maybe I click on graphic organizers. When you do that, you have ready-to-use resources that are available for you. As well as implementation tips and examples of how you can use it cross-curricularly. Down at the bottom, there are other related strategies for you in case this particular one doesn't feel like it's the perfect fit. I'm going to scroll back up to the top, and I'm actually going to save this for Madison because I think it could help her comprehension. I'm going to go back to my strategy page, and instead of looking for a strategy in reading, I'm going to filter for some strategies that may support Madison when it comes to transitions. And so I know that a visual schedule was helpful for her. So when I type in visual schedule in my keyword search, there comes our strategy. When I click, I get ready to use resources, picture choices, a first next chart that's horizontal and vertical, a 3-step visual schedule. All these templates are here for you. You can download them as a PDF or a Word doc, edit them as you wish, and then use in your classroom. I'm going to save this to Madison's folder as well, just so I can start building a set of resources. Now we've been saving a bunch of resources to our library. I'm going to go to the home page and click on my library. Here I have a couple folders set up, one for behavior SEL, one for Jade, a student on my caseload, and I also have Madison's folder set up. I'm going to click, and right away, everything that I've saved is neatly compiled. I have the present level statement, the goal, and the strategies. This button right here is my favorite feature in all of Goalbook Toolkit. I hit share folder, I can get a shareable link, I can copy this link, and I can paste it and put it in the chat. I'll do so right now. And I can share it with anyone that is a stakeholder in Madison's education. I'll repeat, they don't need to have a Goalbook account. They can view these resources with or without Goalbook Toolkit access. So if you think about who you can share this with, general educators, admin, parent, guardian, at the high school level, maybe even Madison herself. If they do have a Goalbook Toolkit account, they'll be able to copy all this information into their Toolkit profile and then continue editing from there. As far as Goalbook Toolkit's functionality is concerned, that pretty much wraps it up. I want to go back and give y'all some work time to continue exploring the different portions of our platform. In the interest of time, I skipped a few slides just so you could get back into the tool. I know we're ending at 2:45, and so I'd love for you to go back into the tool for about 15 minutes and start exploring some subject areas or strategies that feel relevant to you and your students. Again, there are different ways to search for content, so find one that feels most appropriate for you. They all lead you to the same place. Maybe you're practicing saving things to your library. Maybe you're practicing sharing information across educators with your links. And if there's anything I can do to support or any questions that you have, feel free to let me know. I'd be happy to respond. I know the chat was going back and forth while I was doing the demo, so I'm going to scroll up and see if I can answer anything. But again, I'm going to put myself in the background. We'll come back at 2:40, so 10 more minutes for you to explore, and then look to wrap up by 2:45. there's a couple questions in the chat that I think are worth acknowledging out loud. First, can you edit goals on data sheets? The answer is yes. Once you access a data sheet, let me pull one up really quickly. Once you access a data tracking sheet right here, I can open it up in Google and I can file, make a copy, and that'll save it in my drive. And once I do that, then I can go ahead and edit the annual target right over here. Stephanie has a question about, is it always the same assessment? In the present levels wizard and in our progress monitoring assessments, we vary the assessment based off of a particular level. At a particular level, like whether that's second grade or on our anchor pages, if you're looking at the grade level assessment, those will be the same. We do have a content team that works on kind of adding more assessments and swapping that out over time, but the process takes some time. And Elise, your question about data tracking sheets. Our speech goals currently do not have data tracking sheets and progress monitoring assessments. However, that is a primary focus for us in this calendar year. And so the goal is by the end of the year, we'll start to launch some speech goals with the quarterly objectives, the progress monitoring assessments, and data tracking sheets. Right now, we have data tracking sheets for reading, writing, math, transition, behavior, SEL, and all academic. Fantastic questions. Just as a reminder, we'll come back in about 3 minutes, but you're using this time to look for goals or strategies. I know there's a lot of strategies in our strategy wizard around how to build community and build relationships with students. That may be top of mind as school starts in a few days. And so definitely take your time to look through that and see if anything sticks for you. All righty. In the interest of time, I'm going to ask you to wrap up your exploration, maybe bring it back to the Zoom screen, just for some closing remarks and some closeout surveys. So number one, I just want to highlight again that as you create your student profiles, you will have an option to share your student folder with anyone, whether they have or do not have a Goalbook Toolkit account. This becomes a really powerful way to let folks know what goals you've aggregated, what strategies you've aggregated, and build a cohesive team in making sure that your student is getting what they need in all of their classes. At the beginning, I asked you to go on this hike with me, to think about present levels, to think about goals, and to think about strategies and supports that we can implement for our kids to get them from the bottom of this mountain all the way up to the summit. That's incredibly challenging work, and you are all doing it day in and day out. We hope Goalbook Toolkit can be a partner in that work, in helping you do that a little bit more effectively. To that end, I'd love for you to think about these 3 questions. We don't have enough time to engage in a discussion about this, but I'd love for you to think about how may you apply today's learning to your work? What's something that you learned or something that's challenging you as you leave today? Or what's additional work or additional context that you need in order to keep improving your familiarity with Goalbook? To that end, you have a couple of resources that are available to you constantly. You have a scavenger hunt, you have a user guide, which I will share and follow up with your leadership team with. Additionally, we are coming, or I myself am coming to campus on Monday and will be in person. For anyone who's interested, it'll be a similar session to today, but if you feel like you need another round of explanation or you just need more time, feel free to come by and we're happy to have you. That being said, there's a couple of surveys that we would love your feedback on. One is a survey for Goalbook specifically about this session, and additionally what other sessions you may want as we go throughout the year. And so please give us maybe 30 seconds more of your time so that we can collect that feedback and make sure that we are able to read it and implement on it and make sure that you are getting what you need. For those of you that can access, there is a way to access this survey on your phone with the QR code that is listed here. For those of you that prefer to do it electronically on your computer, you can do so by typing in the URL that you see listed. In addition to this survey, there is also a survey for SFUSD, which I will show you momentarily in just about a minute or so. I just want to give folks time to access this one before we flip to another survey. While you do this and while you wait for the next survey to come up, I just want to extend my gratitude one more time for you taking the few hours out of your day to show up and professionally develop. We know this was a choice. We know you chose to be here, and we're really excited that you were able to make it and hopefully find some value in Goalbook Toolkit for supporting your practice. If you need anything at all with respect to Goalbook, we have a support team that is dedicated to helping you out. We are also, we have our webinars that go on monthly. And like I said, I am coming to campus on Monday. We'd love to see you. We'd love to hear from you and just get a sense of how you use our tool. Once again, we really appreciate your feedback with the survey that's on our on the screen right now. If you're done with this survey, which I popped in the chat, there is an SFUSD specific survey for feedback as well. And I'll go ahead and put that in the chat as well. Okay, at this point, I have concluded everything from my end. Jenny, you're still here. I'd love to kick it back to you and say if there's anything you want to close with, any announcements you want to make, feel free to jump on in. I'll just say before I do that, Dave, and to your tech team, thank you so much. This has been an incredible experience for me, and I look forward to it next year.
Thank you. I am expecting a more up-to-date list of active teachers who are still at SFUSD, so we can clean up our Goalbook license access to the licenses. So if you are going to be new at your school site this year, please reach out to your special education supervisor so that she can add you in our list to have the Goalbook license or content specialist. But I'm hoping to get that accurate list of teachers from Goalbook.
Thanks so much, Jenny. All righty, that's all I have from my end. I'm happy to stick around for a little bit if folks have questions, but once you've taken both surveys, you're free to go. We wish you the best of luck this week, and we'll be thinking about you as the first day of school comes along really, really soon. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll see you guys on Monday.
I was wondering when we can have access to the to Goalbook, Jenny.
So I need to work with, first get the list cleaned and send that request to your supervisor or content specialist, and we'll work on that. I usually submit it to Goalbook, and within 24 hours, they give you access for as long as you have the SFUSD email already.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We
Can I
have,
follow up on that question? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Joseph is right here. We are getting, we've had a major shift in our admin this year over at Presidio Middle School. We just got a letter saying 2 people are moved on. So we have 2 new principals. So my question is this: how do we, since we're going to be starting the IEPs and stuff pretty quick, how do we get on? I mean, I was able to use my Google or what's it called? When I signed in, it asked me if I wanted to use my Google sign-in. Will that still let me do it?
Will it? Yes.
Yeah,
Because it's SFUSD, right?
Yeah, Dave may be more qualified to answer that question actually, but I think if you have an account, what I would recommend is using your district email and the password that you set up to log in separately.
Well, I tried to do that, but then it gave me that error message
What
And
was
then
the
I
error
went
message?
ahead and clicked on this, I clicked on the little box that said sign in using Google.
Yeah.
And then boom, it let me in when I did that.
Oh,
That was
okay.
the weird thing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, in that case, if that works, I would say keep on keeping on.
I'll
And
keep my
if,
fingers crossed.
yeah, if it worked once, I would be, I'm optimistic that it would work again. If
Okay.
it doesn't, then you can reach out to our support team and they'll be able to troubleshoot. But as long as you're set up on our end for an account, that method should continue to work for you.
Cool. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you,
Thanks for
Joseph.
the workshop. Appreciate it. Good help.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is Dave. I'd just like to add that it was a fantastic session and there are really some amazing problem solvers here. And I feel an affinity for that. Also, if you have issues, just go ahead and throw us an email at help@sfusd.edu from your district email, and we'll be sure to get that to the right person. The link in the chat does work for signing up for Goalbook, but you can also log in using your district email and password if you hit the sign up with Google button, because we use single sign-on through Google. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Good luck.
Bye. So I'll see you Monday.
Sounds
I'll
good.
be there at 7:30.
Okay.
Is there a session on us from 3 o'clock to 3:50 or no?
Oh, a DDD?
Mhm.
You will have to go back to the,
Okay,
yeah,
all right, I came in
there's
from
a list
another,
in.
it got just on this. Okay, great, thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye, everyone.